And go on.
From Dragon Ball Z, and you're listening to the Monsters with Attitude podcast. Like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, embrace the attitude! Yeah!
Hi, this is Alan Henry. I play King Kong and Sky King in the Monsterverse, and you're listening to the Monsters with Attitude podcast. So, like, comment, and subscribe, and remember, embrace the attitude, yeah!
Hi there, I'm David Fielding, and I played the original Zordon in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Alpha, Rita and Lord Zed have returned. Their attack on Angel Grove is imminent. We must summon the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. Call the Monsters with Attitude. The only way to defeat them is by subscribing to all their social medias. May the power protect you. And if all else fails, embrace the attitude.
I absolutely love that Zordon introduction for us. Oh my goodness, that's why I'm so cheap. But as always, what is going on, you guys? You already know it's your boy Jordan, the Don Adorno, coming to you with a raw live interview. And right here to my, or I guess my right, my left, I don't even know at this point. Here I have right next to me is my brother from another mother, none other than my boy Adrian Settle. What is going on, my man?
What's up, Jordan? What's up, Kaiju family? How y'all doing today? It's gonna be a fun one. I'm excited. Ready to go.
Absolutely. This is for me, it's an honor. I'm pretty sure for all of our viewers, for everybody else here on Monsters with Attitude would agree when I say that it is going to be, without a shot of a doubt, a raw attitude of the interview, because we have none other than the co-director for that of one of the most highly acclaimed movies within our community in Ultraman Rising, John Aoshima.
Hello. Hey, Jordan. Hey, Adrian. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, John.
Yeah, like I told you, it is again an honor to have you here. Again, we've been in contact for quite some time, and I am super happy that we were able to meet a day and a time, so that we can all. One of our slogan is to embrace the attitude. So we are happy to have you here, and just embrace the attitude, my friend.
Awesome. Yeah.
Now, really quick, so we're just gonna get started with the questions. So are you ready, my friend?
Let's do it.
All right. So first question I have for you is, what was the stem of your career, John? Whether if it be from a director role or anything else that pertained to, doing movies, what was the stem?
Yeah, I think once I realized Hollywood was in my backyard, and what I mean by that is, before I was always into like cartoons, watching cartoons and anime in Japan when I was growing up there, and even tokusatsu stuff in Japan. Coming to the States and discovering like Looney Tunes and and realizing animation cartoons are on like all day long. But I think what really like kicked in for me was, I grew up in a city called Roland Heights, and in the city, Roland Heights, California, and the city next to it is City of Industry, and there's a mall called Point of Hills Mall. And if you know what that is, it's the Twin Pines Mall from Back to the Future. And and once and that's my local mall, and I was taking Japanese school on Saturdays, and the bus stop was at that mall, and so I would be out there like every week, and then but once I realized, recognizing the mall from Back to the Future, and I think I didn't see it in the theater, the original in the theater, but my neighbor had the movie on VHS, and once I realized, I was like, hey, isn't that our mall? And they're like, yeah, like my friend's parents were like, yeah, you didn't know that? Like, it's like a known fact around here. Like, and so I was just like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And I love cars, and obviously we all love DeLorean and everything. So I was sold, right? And I was like, and I had this like dream of like having this awe of or dream of like being part of it, and then also going to Universal Studios tour, and I remember going one time, and they were shooting Back to the Future 2, and so the trams were going in the back stages, and they had like the DeLorean, and then the DeLorean cabin only for the actors for interior shots. Like seeing all the futuristic cars around,
Yep.
I was like, holy cow, like this is a real thing. And so I was collecting the LA Times. They'll have those newspaper poster ads for the movie Back to the
Yep.
Future 2, and then they re-released Back to the Future 1. So I had that up on my wall in my room, just waiting for the movie to come out. So I think that was probably the beginning of like being wanting to be part of the entertainment business, and then I think maybe it was destiny. I happened to be in a location in a city where there was a really well-known high school for having animation as an
Ooh.
elective class, and that really like solidified my direction. I was just like, because we had alumni that were professionals,
Oh.
and once I realized like we had this Disney animator, we had artists at The Simpsons, and they would come to school and talk to us, and our teacher Dave Master, who started the program, would just cold call people in the entertainment business, and some of them would come out and speak at the program. Kathleen Kennedy came. A lot of the great legends of animation have come. Executives from studios have come, and so it just made me realize like it's not too far of a stretch to dream to be in the business, and so we were learning what was necessary to get your foot in the door, and it really like set the stage or set the path, the course to take to make that happen.
Wow. So you mentioned that there were a lot of people in there that ended up, being involved with Disney. I found
Yeah.
out to be very interesting. You were also involved with Disney. Correct me if I'm wrong. You worked on Gravity Falls
Yeah.
and as well as DuckTales.
Mm-hmm.
So, by all means, can you give us any insider's feed with basically how it was working for Disney and just again, like what was the stem to ending up going out of your way to then create Gravity Falls and then to resurrect DuckTales?
For me, I had my start in like primetime animation. So I started on Futurama at a college. But so I was in the sort of the primetime space for like primetime comedy space for quite some time, from Futurama, Simpsons, and then American Dad. And American Dad was my first opportunity to direct, being an episodic director, right? And so, long story short, like I ended up like being there for 6 seasons, which is like 7 years of my career, which is a big chunk.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think it, maybe I had the 7-year itch or something. I wanted to explore and do other things other than just like um, um, adult humor, adult gags and stuff. And and so I was exploring the opportunities, but I had to wait for the right project.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And what happened was, when I was working for Fox, I lived in Valencia, which is where CalArts is, and I had a roommate who was going to CalArts at the time, and is a longtime friend of mine that I've known since I was like 14, and he had decided to go to our college later in his career, and in that class Alex Hirsch was in that class with him.
Wow.
My friend is Sean Jimenez, who's the art director of DuckTales.
Wow.
And so Alex Hirsch was in the class. So I had met a bunch of that group because they would come over to the place and whatever, we'd have barbecue or whatnot. And fast forward, my friend Sean calls me and says, "Hey, I think we have. I think this is something that's up your alley. You remember Alex? He had sold a show at Disney TV, and you should come over and see what it's about." And so I said, "All right." So I went out, and Alex was busy, but Sean had pitched me the concept of um, Gravity Falls and played the pilot, unaired pilot. It's like I think
Yeah.
7 minutes long, and it was like amazing, right? And so I was like, "Holy cow, this is something I have to be part of." And it just so happens that like not only did Alex know who I was, but he was looking for a director that had like experience on The Simpsons and like had that Simpsons or primetime sensibility. And it was like Simpsons meets Twin Peaks was like what was like being floated around for Gravity Falls. So I was like, okay, like let's do this. This is awesome. And yeah, I took a pay cut, you know, from a primetime TV show to unknown daytime Disney TV project, but it was, I mean, for me, it was all about what the show was about, and I believed in it, so I made that leap of faith, and that's how I got on Gravity Falls, and it was one of the hardest shows to be part of, but I
Wow.
think it was just because the amount of passion, because it was a smaller crew than like a prime time, high budget production. But you know, I found my way through the process and navigated through that. But yeah, that was my you know, quick story on Gravity Falls. And then I bounced around on different projects at Disney TV. Because I did leave Disney for a little bit to work
Mhm.
on Kubo and the Two Strings, right? But then, since we're talking about Disney, like, and then I came back to Disney, and then I want to be on the creative side because I was doing a lot of production support type roles
Yep.
on the post side or whatnot, and so DuckTales was in the works, and again, my friend Sean is on the show, prepping, you know, the pre-production of DuckTales, and I'm, you know, visiting his office, and I just see all his art, and I'm just looking at it, going like, yeah, I kind of get a sense of this show. This is super exciting,
Yep.
and so yeah, everybody wanted to get on DuckTales,
Oh, I
and
can only imagine.
to the point where people that were directing on other Disney shows were willing to quit just to get on DuckTales.
Wow.
Wow.
And what happened was the showrunner Matt, he's like, um, you know, I just want to do a blind test. Like
Mhm.
everyone that's interested will have to take a storyboard directing test,
Yep.
and then we'll just have to pick the best one and go from there. And I guess I passed, and so they called me up, and I made, you know, I got on the show, um, and the rest is history.
It's funny because now I can't speak for Adrian, but for me growing up, I was exposed to Disney heavily, but it was only because I have a brother who has autism, and he's like, to this day, my niche for Godzilla and Tokusatsu is his niche for Disney. So I
Mm,
was never really a Disney kid growing up, for to say. So I've never watched the original DuckTales,
okay.
or I wasn't a Disney Channel kid up until a specific time period where I was just like, drawing away from cartoons. And I remember my youngest brother, Jacob, everywhere he went, whether if it was just him or even his buddies, even if I were to just turn on the TV and the TV would just so happen to be on a specific channel, it would always be because of Gravity Falls. I
Yeah.
personally think that during the time, at least for me, where I thought um Disney Channel was like running out of ideas with creative shows, what brought that realization back to life was Gravity Falls. And so going back to it, looking at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this, in my opinion, th- this is going to lead to something bigger than what the common viewer would look at it as.
Hmm.
So then hearing the rumors that DuckTales was going to be revamped and brought back to life, I thought was like, wow, this is a gateway for so many kids of this generation, even from when the show came out, to be able to go back and sit back with their family who had watched the original DuckTales to watch this new revamped version. And I remember it was like the biggest talk for everybody that grew up with the classic shows and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So that's why I also had these questions written down, because I thought, wow, this is the man. Again, in my opinion, this is the man that revived Disney Channel, in a sense, bringing back one, a classic show, and then an original show has so much creativity. So,
Hmm.
John, I guess salute to you, my friend.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it has to do with the incredible, passionate group of people that love the craft and love telling stories, good stories. And um, um, for someone like Alex, he was obviously all in because he literally like pretty much lived at the studio, just like making the best show possible. And he would do a lot of rewrites. Um,
Mhm.
and at times it can disrupt production heavily, to reboard those new script pages. But after hearing him pitch it and after reading what he's rewritten, with his like great creative partner, Mike Rianda, like it was just like no question, like okay, okay. And not only that, like Alex would like board a whole sequence on his own during editorial and change stuff,
Wow.
and then he'll just be like, okay, it's going to a vendor studio, so let's get this packaged up. And I'll be like, okay, taking his loose doodles because he's working so fast. But
Yep.
I'm watching his passion, and I'm just like, I can't deny this. Like this is much better, and it's really fun and hilarious, right? So it's just like, I just had to roll up my sleeves and figure, I just got to get this done. Um, and then for Ducktales, yeah, I grew up, I'm a Disney afternoon kid, and so I watch Gummy Bears to Ducktales and Tailspin after school, and so when Ducktales was coming up through development, and
Mhm.
again seeing Sean's artwork, I was just like, this um, this version has a really cool vibe to it, based off the art. Has this charming vibe coming off of it, and I told Sean, I said, I think I know what it is. I think it has a Miyazaki, uh,
Ooh.
Lupin the Third, Castle Cagliostro vibe to this.
Yes.
And so I was like, I know what I would want to do, the sensibility. And I think when I took the test, that's all was in my head, and I was just like, I'm just gonna go all in, and even like, just like went beyond the
Mhm.
script description, and I just added stuff because I just wanted the show to be a certain way, and I think maybe that's what got me the gig. They saw that I was adding more to the test, but it was in line with maybe the showrunner Matt and Frank's like sensibility, and it all worked out.
Again, it's so cool to know that. And I know, again, going back to turning on the TV and then Disney Channel would be on, and it just so happens to have Gravity Falls. I'm, doing normal chores around the house, and then I'll just catch myself sitting back and I'm like completely so,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like it's awesome that you're able to do that.
yeah,
Another thing that I want to bring up that I do recall you mentioning is that you worked on one of my favorite stop motion movies of all time, in that of Kubo and the Two Strings.
yeah.
So anybody, one, for all of our viewers, including you, Adrian, or Adrian, have you ever watched Kubo?
I still need to sit down and watch it. I just haven't done it yet. Yes, I know.
I mean, after
I know
this,
I've been meaning to
you
watch
will.
it. I just haven't watched it yet.
It is a phenomenal movie. For anybody, even that's watching, if you guys haven't watched Kubo, it is a it's a highly recommended movie on behalf of me. So John, can you give us in the audience your experience working with Kubo? What were your ideas? What was your role working for Kubo? And just let's
Yeah.
talk about Kubo.
All right, let's jump in. Okay, Kubo and the Two Strings, created by Shannon Tyndall, a longtime friend of mine from CalArts. And what's interesting, and maybe you've heard this, but Shannon and I used to be roommates, and
Oh,
Oh,
when we were roommates, excuse me, I had some high school friends come visit me, right, at the house, and Shannon had never met my high school friends. And a lot of them are from the animation program and stuff, and that I'm really close to, and they kept calling me Kubo, and that's because Kubo was my stepfather's last name, and I carried that name through
wow.
high school, and I actually changed it my senior year before I went off to college, and so to Aoshima, and so which is my mom's maiden name, and um, but anyway, Shannon, hearing the name Kubo, he's like, "Why are they calling you that? I know you as John, like all through college, right?" And so I had told him the story, and so he's just like, "Oh wow, well Kubo, that's a cool name. That's interesting. I'm gonna name a character after that." And I said, "Yeah, sure, have fun." Because at the time Shannon was a character designer, and he
Okay.
was also like creating his own idea, like projects and all, and shows and whatnot. And I didn't think much of it until I got a call from Shannon, and he said, "I think I sold a show to Leica, and we're calling it Kubo and the Two Strings. Your name's on
Wow.
it. You have to come work on it, and you got to come up to Portland, Oregon, to Leica." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, stop motion? Yeah. I love miniatures, right? I love
I
Leica's work. Okay, I'll come up." And they interviewed me, and they flew me up, and went through the interview rounds. Um, but yeah, that's how I was introduced to the project and brought on. And I think being on Gravity Falls also helped, because
wow.
Gravity Falls, the story took place in Oregon, and
Mhm,
and as you know, Alex was inspired by Portland, Oregon, when he
mhm.
was an intern at Leica, and so it's kind of a full circle in a way, or connected. I'm connected that circle. Um, but yeah, and that's how I came on, and I came on as Shannon's head of story during the development phase. and an
Mhm.
early, I would say probably pre-production phase. And so I supported him, just managing the story department, with with my head of story role, and I helped, just run the team of amazing board artists that were at Leica, and then we brought on some more, through people that Shannon and I knew, and yeah, and we got into it, and that was like a really fun journey for me because I was able to kind of shift my sensibilities in storyboarding because and directing or supervising because
Mhm.
TV 2D format is very specific,
Oh, yes.
that lends itself to, production and production budgets, and now I'm working on a 3D film with real cameras and lenses, and we can go more cinematic because we can
Mhm.
move the camera. You can, it's dimensional space. So that really like opened up an opportunity that I was super excited for, something I've always wanted to do. And Shannon, also being, very camera minded, um,
Mhm.
and cinematic, minded, that he was just talking about, looking at Kurosawa's work and all these like amazing classic films and amazing filmmakers, the cinematographers, and that was like super fun for me to break out of the TV format into a
Mhm.
feature 235 format or 239, and yeah, and we just got into it, dove in, um, and I have a bunch of anecdotes I can share. Being part of the movie. Uh, um, and myself being Japanese, I was able to kind of help in every way possible, like, uh, share my viewpoints, share the
Mm.
cultural sensibilities, the best way I could. Right, I'm not fluent in Japanese, and I'm not a Japanese historian, but some of the sensibilities, if I see it, I can bring it up, or I can say, hey, there's an opportunity here, and add to it. And one of the, opportunity was, it's unfortunate, but my grandmother had passed away, during
Oh,
the production, so I had to go back to Japan, and it's
yeah.
tradition to, burn, the deceased, clothing, the kimono. And so my
Yeah.
mom and my aunt were collecting my grandmother's kimono, and my mom said, "Hey, aren't you, working on a Japanese period project? Does any of this kimono useful?" And I said, can I can I take them with me?" And then she's like, "Yeah, take them. You need them. It would be great to have your grandmother's kimono help support influence the project you're on." And so I said, okay. So I started to select, and then this one bright small kimono popped out out of the pile, and I was like, "Whoa, look at this!" And then my mom's like, "Oh, that was my kimono growing up." And I said, "Oh," and I said, "Well, why is it like this?" And what was strange about this particular kimono was it had these, accordion folds in them in the fabric,
Okay.
and it was stitched along the folds. And I said, "Why is it this way? It's so different from the other kimonos." And she
Yeah.
said, "Back in the day, like, we wouldn't spend the money on children's size kimono. So what they would do is buy adult size, and then they would accordion fold them. So
Oh,
they shrink the kimono to fit the child's size, and then they would, as they grow, they would unstitch to unfold the kimono out." And I
wow.
was like, wow, that's an amazing story. Like, I never heard of that.
Yeah.
And
Same
so
thing?
the moment I went back, and I talked to Shannon, I spoke to our costume designer, and I said, "Look at this. This is what," I shared the story, and they're like amazed by it. And so they said, Shannon was like, "Well, I want Kubo to wear his father's kimono. So we will do that. We'll have accordion folds in his kimono. So if you look at Kubo carefully in the film, he has those folds.
Wow.
Yeah. So you get to rewatch it. You get to reanalyze it.
That's exactly that's wow, John. That is again, huge fan of the movie. Adrian, we might have to do with Samson a live watch tonight on stream or this weekend to watch Kubo, because it's again, for those who have never seen it, especially within our community, being that we are fans of not only just tokusatsu but specific stop motion movies. Obviously, paying kudos to that of the original King Kong, um Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, all of that. This really does tie in well with, if not a kaiju movie, but like a classic stop motion movie that does have that Japanese cultural vibe. Now, speaking of Japanese culture and as well as tokusatsu and stuff like that, I will leave Adrian to ask you this specific question. We're just gonna jump in with the Toku, Godzilla, Ultraman, all that fun, big old jumbo stuff, and it's the overall reason why we're here. So, by all means, Adrian, go right ahead, my brother.
Of course, John. I mean, obviously, a lot of us did grow up as tokusatsu or kaiju fans. How big of a kaiju fan were you growing up, or were you more in the tokusatsu rim of the fandom?
I'm a child of the 80s, and I was in Japan till I was 8. So at that time, Ultraman 80 may have been playing, but there were reruns of the classic Ultraman, Ultra 7, which I've had this. The moment I moved to the U.S., I had this distant, what do you call it? Just lost memory, of that period. But coming back around, knowing that I was going to work on this with Shannon, it brought a lot of memories back. And I recall watching Kamen Rider, Power Rangers, the Japanese Power Rangers, and that was more of my time. So the Godzilla stuff were around, but those were even older, and so you would only catch them once in a while being broadcasted on TV, because I rarely went to the movie theater at that age. But whatever I was catching on TV, whether it was watching samurai dramas with my grandfather, or being able to watch those late 70s early 80s anime, I would say Power Ranger and a bit of Ultraman were probably one of the main things that I have fond memories of.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, we all have our backstories as to how we got into Godzilla or just the fandom overall in general. Um, it's for me it's different hearing. I think you are the second person that I know, and ironic enough, that we've interviewed as well, that has said that their introduction to the genre wasn't even so much Godzilla, but a recollection of that of Ultraman, Power Rangers, or Super Sentai Kamen Rider, which
Mm-hmm.
is a show that I need to get onto. I'm not gonna lie. Um, but it's just there's so many varieties to choose from, and it's just like, whether if it's not Godzilla, hey, listen, you're still part of the fandom. But again, it's more reasons as to why you specifically, John, are part of the fandom, is because you had helped created one of the most talked about, the most declarative, and in my opinion, a proper introduction to this iconic character here in the States working on Ultraman Rising. So, can you give us just your experience working on the movie? What were the ideas, and just
Mm.
how did Ultraman Rising come to be about?
I will start off with one of those calls from Shannon again, right? So Shannon, after way past Kubo, I was on DuckTales at the time, and he calls me up and says, um, "So I have this project over here, and actually it was at Sony Pictures Animation, and obviously like Shannon's a close friend, so I would hear things through him, um, but for an actual official like job, role,
Yeah.
he calls me up and says, I'm getting this project up, and we're bringing our department leads into setting up the pre-production for this film, and it was a project that was inspired by Ultraman. It wasn't Ultraman, and at the time it was called Made in Japan, and it was a giant superhero that comes across a kaiju egg,
Oh,
and the egg hatches. So that was Shannon's idea from the beginning, and
wow.
he worked closely with his writing partner from Kubo, Mark Hames, and yeah, I came on board when there was, I don't know which draft of the script was put together at that point, but I read a version, at early version where the story took place in Japan. Um, and it was really, yeah, it's really exciting, right? And so what happened at Sony was they decided to change the location, and it changed to LA. And so our Ken Sato, who plays for the Yomiuri Giants,
Yeah.
in that Japanese script turned into him playing for the Dodgers,
Wow.
and when the location changed. And so when that had happened, we wanted to keep, or Shannon wanted to keep the main hero still Japanese, so we just said make him Japanese American. And this is way before Otani, or like that kind of stuff for the Dodgers. And what happened was, eventually there were some creative, differences in the direction between the studio and Shannon, and so basically the project got canceled at Sony. But but because Shannon had such a great relationship with Sony, that they let him shop it, and Netflix had heard about this project, because it's animation is a small community, and so
Yeah.
Netflix had reached out to Shannon and said, come pitch the project over here. And this is like, when you maybe talk to Shannon directly, maybe he'll share the story as
Yeah.
well. But basically, what he told me was, because I wasn't there with him or anything, but what he told me was he went to Netflix, and he thought he was going to go and pitch Made in Japan to them, and he walks into a room full of executives, and and at that point they had already read the script, and they told him, Shannon, we love the script, um, um, and it just so happens that we're talking to Tsuburaya Productions about possibly doing a Ultraman project, and if this movie is inspired by Ultraman, would you consider making it into an Ultraman film? And
Wow.
then so what he told me was, if like, he said the fan Shannon was like, oh my god, Ultraman, that's incredible, right? He was super excited. But the producer Shannon was like, can I, like, with a huge uh iconic character like Ultraman, like, can he have creative control on the story he
Yeah.
wants to tell? Um, and but I think Netflix was really loving the story that he has, and so they said, um, well, we want you to go to Japan and pitch it to Tsuburaya, and start there. and so Shannon wasn't going to turn down a free trip to Japan, so he goes out there, and of course, like he always does, he wows them. They love the idea, they love the concept. And during that time, I was working for Jorge Gutierrez on Maya 3 at Netflix.
Okay.
And Jorge and Shannon and I, we all went to CalArts around the same time, so we all know each other. And Jorge and Shannon are really, really close friends. And so when Shannon came back and the Netflix Tsuburaya was a go, and Netflix had bought the project from Sony, it was about like, okay, how do we convert this original idea
Mm-hmm.
to an Ultraman project? And so Jorge was gracious, was like, Shannon needs you. You can roll off, Maya. You're wrapping up anyway. So, let's we'll say our goodbyes, and then, but it's still set up at the same company. So it's like, we're not, we're around one another. But basically I rolled off of Maya 3 on a Friday, and on a Saturday I hopped on a plane with Shannon to go back to Japan to Tsuburaya. And we spent a week with the Tsuburaya team about we were getting a download of what the franchise and the hero is about. And then how can we, what is the angle that'll turn this made in Japan project into an Ultraman film? And so we were brainstorming, and we downloaded what was important to Tsuburaya. And then we came back to LA, and Shannon was converting the script, and I was exploring potential series idea, and I was coming out with a prequel series idea that I hope one day we can do. It's about the KDF and how that was formed.
Yes.
And so while I was like doing that on the side, it kind of helped set up the backstory of who these characters are, who Dr. Onda is, Professor Sato, and Ken's mom, Emiko. And that had, I think, helped define the character a bit more, discussing it with Shannon of my exploration and his creative views and all. And we went back to Tsuburaya like a few months later in Japan, and we pitched like the direction, and yeah, we got going after that.
Wow. I know for a lot of us Toku/Ultraman fans, once I got the news of this, I was first and foremost, I was shocked that we were going to get an American adaptation of Ultraman. Not only just that, but an animated 3D movie.
Mhm.
Adrian could agree to this. When I met my fiance, the first thing I asked her, this is going to sound ridiculous, but the first thing I asked her without her knowing anything about me, I said, Godzilla or King Kong? Side note, John, I absolutely hate King Kong. So this is why I
Oh
asked her,
wow.
right? So then she goes, why are you asking me this? And I'm like, it's just a personal opinion, start something interesting, like an interesting topic of discussion. She goes, oh well, I guess I'll say if I had to choose, I'd say Godzilla. And I go, I'm gonna put a ring on her. So fast forward to that, she obviously she's a huge part of the community and stuff like that, gradually becoming a
Yeah.
fan. If there was one thing, and no matter how many times I tried to get her on board with, was watching Ultraman. It didn't pique her interest whatsoever up until the first trailer for Ultraman Rising came out.
Oh
And
wow.
I have she just turned 1 years old. I have a 1-year-old
Oh,
niece, and we were like, we're gonna watch this movie with her. And so when the movie came out, we all sat down in the living room, and the look on my niece's face was priceless. But my fiance
mm,
absolutely loves this movie, and
oh, so
I
great.
think for me again, this is the best way to introduce Ultraman to those who've never came across it, or if not that, but just also to sit down with your children if you did grow up as an Ultraman fan and introduce them to it. Um,
Mm,
a few things, at least for me, because I know I played this sport. I was actually a pitcher for baseball, and
yeah.
I almost received a scholarship, but I turned it down. I ended up wanting to go boxing. If I wanted to be Ultraman or
Okay.
Godzilla, I gotta fight like them. So, um, is
Hey.
there and I'll leave Adrian to ask this question because this is the topic of discussion that both me and him have had, about the baseball thing. So, Adrian, by all means, go right ahead, brother.
Yes. Is there a specific reason as to why baseball was so heavily influenced into the movie?
You know, baseball was always in the original script.
Okay.
And I think um, maybe being, inspired by Ultraman, there's always, the protagonist has a profession, whether it's a race car
Mhm.
driver or whatnot, right? Um, he had decided on baseball. Like he thought, I believe, like, again, you should talk to Shannon, but um, the the idea of like having this like celebrity level like superstar player who is has its own life going for him, right? And then suddenly he's asked to take over as a superhero, and like so he has to put aside his love for the greater good. Like that is very interesting, and I think that's probably the the foundation of his concept. And baseball, I think just maybe it was a natural fit for him or whatever it was, but it sure was for me when I came on because I grew up playing in the little league and played high school ball for a little bit before I got into animation program in high school. But and my older brother played baseball. He played professionally
Wow.
in Japan
Oh, wow.
for like what's equivalent to I think a minor league level, and so like baseball was part of my life, and
Mhm.
and and Shannon's aware of that. He's met my brother and stuff, and so we talked about that. And once um, the project was at Sony and we explored that original Japan version and it became a US version, it was just natural to maintain the baseball
Yeah.
and Ken Sato played for the Dodgers. But once that project came to Netflix, there's some good things that came out of the LA version. So we
Mhm.
just said, well, let's just say he is Japanese American having to come home to take on the mantle of Ultraman, because that's where Ultraman exists.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, and that's sort of the origin, right? And so yeah, that kind of made it, or added an additional level to the character who had his life going for the LA Dodgers, and then
Mhm.
he's abruptly asked to leave his love of the sport, but he hasn't committed 100% because
Yeah. Yep.
he comes to Japan to play for Yomiuri Giants, and so I think that all that kind of helped continue the the obstacle and the challenge as a character for him.
Okay. Okay.
That's really interesting. I love it. Like I said, from a um childhood perspective, I grew up with baseball. I was either left or right outfielder. Again, I mentioned I was a pitcher, and that's where I
Mm,
really found my niche for baseball.
mm,
But speaking of baseball, the first scene of Ken Sato playing for the Giants. smacks the ball, and then all of a sudden you get poof Gigantron, which
Hmm.
is a beautifully well designed, put together kaiju, and an original kaiju at that, to be
Yeah.
added onto the list of Ultra Kaijus. By any chance, was there a list of specific classic kaiju that you would have wanted to add into the movie? I know we had Naranga and Bemular, and you had like the little scene where they're walking into the lair where they're creating Mecha Gigantron, and you get to see like the bio of Gamora, which quoted for it
Mm.
to be deceased, which it broke my heart. Um, but again, was there any ideas of bringing in just original kaiju to play in the movie, or was it that you guys wanted to make your own?
Well, Gigantron was in the original Made in Japan version from the
Oh,
start,
okay.
along with Emmy, and and um, and so the Netflix version bringing the Ultraman lore to it. Of course, we had to have the first kaiju from the series
Mhm,
appear
mhm.
at the opening, that the dad as Ultraman faces. Um, Um, hey, we would love to have had other kaijus,
Yeah.
in the film, but they are very, very expensive to
Oh,
model and build, and yeah, it was like, there's a fan side of us that want to put everything we want,
oh
but then at
yes.
the same time, we have to be responsible filmmakers,
Mhm.
depending on schedule and budget, and so just finding that right balance. But I would say Gomorrah, I wanted to see Gomorrah in the film. And I think the fact that we couldn't do it, but at least mentioned, because
Yeah,
I recall Shannon asking me who my favorite kaiju is in the um, Ultraman space, and I think I had told him Gamora, and it's just because he's so iconic,
absolutely.
like his silhouette is so iconic, that's so recognizable. Um, and so yeah, I think that's why he had written it. Hopefully, that's why he had written Gamora into the script, even
Mhm.
though we couldn't get a visual representation of it, other than the deceased sign. You know, all these kaijus, they all come and go, especially
Yeah,
Naranja.
Yeah, for sure.
and but yeah, we all love them. So I think they keep returning. So we weren't, concerned conveying like these kaiju have been deceased in our world,
mhm,
but yeah, I would say like Gamora, King, like we would, yeah, we would figure out ways, especially in the montage sequence where you see, Ultraman fighting and
mhm,
trying to juggle that with his baseball and raising a baby kaiju. That, all that montage moment. We wanted to add snippets of like others, but
mhm.
yeah, it's just the production cost would have been, we
Wow.
would have, blew the budget, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man. Listen, I a huge Gamora fan. I actually have a Gamora figure displayed in the background here
Oh
for
yeah,
specific. Oh,
yeah. Is that the wait? That's not the SH figure art one.
no,
Is it?
this is Bandai. This is their Sound Battle series. This is from Ultraman
Ah,
Power. So it was
yeah.
so super difficult to get the batteries installed in here, but all you had to do is just stomp on it and
Oh
then
yeah.
it roars once you stomp on it.
Awesome.
So I had to show Gamora some love. And now to hear that is just like, oh
Awesome.
man, oh, what if,
Yeah.
Another thing that I want to bring up to your attention, or two more last and final questions. Is that okay with you,
Mm,
Adrian?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that okay with you, John?
of course.
All right. So one of the first and second of first to the two questions is there were a lot of references that we had noticed within the movie, um, ranging from who Ken grew up watching in Japan with his mother, playing for the Tokyo Giants, and that of Hideki Matsui. Emmy doing the classic Godzilla dance and so many other references.
Yeah.
Was that done to show some type of respect to Godzilla, or is there a project in the works that will kind of bring the two characters?
Oh my God.
I'm all about Easter
That
eggs, but it's
that would be awesome. But I think it was Shannon's way of like giving a nod to Tokusatsu, right?
mm,
And Tokusatsu, Japanese Tokusatsu with Godzilla, Eiji Tsuburaya, who helped create Godzilla,
yes,
Hideaki Matsui, known as Godzilla, and the baseball element ties itself. There's a reason why, Ken plays for the Yomiuri Giants, right?
mm,
So there's all this like, symbolism and hidden messages in them. And for Emmy doing the Godzilla dance, or the hop, that was a promise he made to a close friend of Shannon. And the friend had asked Shannon, like, you're doing Ultraman, so you got to promise me that the Godzilla dance is going to be in it. So he delivered on that promise. Yeah.
that's awesome. Listen, you don't understand how oversaturated I was with those specific references. I'm like, are we gonna be getting a Godzilla versus Ultraman soon? Something similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of time, isn't it? I hope so. Like, we've all rolled off of Netflix, but it's one of those things where, because the rights are with Tsuburaya, and I don't know what the deal is, but I imagine Netflix has a say in it. But I would imagine if there's enough demand by the fans and the the market asks for it, I think there is a potential possibility. And of course, Shannon and I would love to have that opportunity to do that. Jeez,
Yeah.
two great Tokusatsu icons coming together. Man, sign me up.
That'd be
We're gonna
awesome.
keep our fingers crossed for that. And I
Yeah.
will leave Adrian to ask the last question, John. Go ahead, brother.
Which, of course, if people took the time to watch the after credit scene with Ultraman Rising, we was kind of left on a cliffhanger that Emmy is still alive. So that, of course, that brings my question to: are we going to get a sequel to Ultraman Rising?
You're referring to Emiko, Ken's mother, right? Yes. The sequel is left because there's plenty of stories that Shannon has in his head. I think he has more than a sequel in his head. And obviously, I hinted that I have a series idea that I would love Netflix to do, but it's up to Netflix. It's up to Netflix and Ultraman rights holders at Tsuburaya figuring that out. And so while the grown-ups, I would say, have the control and say, we fans and children will just have to hope for the best, cross our fingers, and wait. I hope we don't have to wait like Incredibles 2, where it took like almost a decade for the sequel to come out. But yeah, we have ideas. Yeah. And what Shannon left is really, really compelling, like edge of your seat, like I gotta see this through, like what's gonna happen. And it's funny with that little tag at the end, he didn't even like he just wrote it and he just surprised the crew. I didn't even know it.
Ooh.
He's like, yeah. And I'm reading it spoiler alert for those that haven't seen it, but I'm just like, I'm reading the script and it gives the location on Ken's watch. I was like, yeah. Yeah. Let's make
That's
this happen. Yeah.
that's so. Oh my god, we might have to reach out to Shannon now because this is. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Um.
Oh, yeah. 100%. You have to reach out to Shannon.
Oh man. So that's. I'll find the
Yeah.
time to do that.
Yeah.
I
You have to understand, I'm holding my lip. Like, I don't want to give away anything. It's up to him. It's his baby. His vision that I'm, all for supporting, and want to be part of. But it's for him to share. So I'm gonna hold my.
And we'll
Yeah.
definitely respect that for sure.
Yes, yes. Um, Adrian, can you pop up just a little one more last question in regards to one of our people that are watching, our brother in command, one of our favorite moderators in Monsters with Attitude, Oscar asks, if given the opportunity, would you give a shot on doing a Gamera project?
Ooh. Yeah, of course. Any reason to visit these characters of tokusatsu history, of course. I mean, my whole career has been a lot of IPs,
Mhm.
and I do want to explore like what's possible moving forward. I'm just like, I got a taste of Ultraman. Like, what else can I play with? Like, can I have Super Sentai character? Can I get Kamen Rider? Can I get like, I don't know, Tezuka character? Like, I'm
Oh,
just open to everything right now. So we'll see.
well, that's another thing we have to keep our fingers crossed for.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, we had just reached the 1 hour marker, so
Yeah.
John, thank you, my man, for again taking the time off to just be with us here at Monsters with Attitude. Oh my goodness, this I don't want to say it was long overdue, but the wait well worth it, my friend. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah. Great. Thanks for having me. This is super fun.
Now listen,
Yeah. Great
I had
question. Yeah.
Adrian, or really quick, John, is there anything that you want to give out to the public, like any events, upcoming events that you're going to be a part of, your socials?
I don't know exactly what I'm allowed to share. But I imagine, yeah, I think it's out there. Like I'm sure we'll get an art of book coming out, or maybe it's the making of more
Ooh,
of like the process of, and there's going to be a lot of great like development art, I believe, in there. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
ooh,
Um, Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff with the, yeah, because we had our release with Netflix, but with
mhm,
the amazing support by Tsuburaya and Bandai, Bandai's toy line too.
mm,
Um, they're really pushing the merchandise, and
yes.
so, I mean, the other day they just had popcorn seasoning with Ultraman Rising on it. So like, I was like, hey, I'm in. Like, go, yeah, do whatever you can to get the word out, get the recognition, so we can get that sequel.
Yeah.
I think we all want it, and I think is if the fans continue to make noise and maybe flood Netflix
Mm,
communications and say, give us a sequel. Maybe there's higher hopes, but yeah, yeah, that's all I can say. But I think we're part of the Ultraman family, and
mhm,
so I hope that we can continue talking about the movie and sharing our inspiration, because I've only given you a snippet of the things I want to share,
yeah.
or I can share. But yeah, there, and again, like, we can talk for another hour on all the Easter eggs if you want. So
That could be possibly a whole nother show.
yeah,
Listen, we would love to have you back, John. Oh my goodness.
yeah,
There
yeah.
are
You talk to Shannon, talk about Ultraman Rising, or we can talk about Kubo, whatever. Like, yeah, hit us up.
yes, most definitely. I'll definitely get in contact. I know there's a few of our hosts that couldn't be on today, but it was an absolute honor for them to know that we have such a superstar in you to be able to be with
Oh,
us and
thank you.
stuff like that. So again, thank you, John, for just not only just creating or branching out to a larger audience here in the States, reintroducing Ultraman to us, but just to come here and talk to us.
Yeah, of course.
Agent,
Well,
really
thanks
quick,
for having me. Yeah.
of course, Agent, is anything that you want to give out to the people, your socials, all of that good stuff?
And folks know where they can find me.
Same here. You guys already know. The handle names are right underneath our names. Thank
Yeah.
you everybody for tuning in to watch this very talented individual to come on board with us. John, we would like for you to alongside with me and Adrian to close the show off by saying embrace the attitude. You will know exactly when the cue is. So are you ready, my friend?
Oh yeah.
All right. So obviously, you guys, once again, thank you guys for tuning in today with Monsters with Attitudes live raw interview. And as always, don't you ever, and I mean, don't you ever forget to embrace
Embrace
Right.
the
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 attitude.
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 Goodbye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.